Hello and welcome. This video is going to be all about the games from the Humble Bundle Choice membership for March 2024. Sorry that I am a week late with this video. I was sick. Anyway, this month offers a rather nice selection of games, even if some of them are mixed on Steam. So let's get into the individual games now. The first offering is the Ultimate Edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin. I am not surprised at all that this one made it to a bundle less than half a year after it came out. I remember watching a bunch of reviews as I was interested in the game when it came out, and my impression was that this strategy game from Frontier Developments landed about as well as a wet fart inside crowded elevator. According to most reviews I watched, as well as many of the Steam reviews I read, Realms of Ruin is a fairly uninteresting and at times boring game that looks great, so I might play it at some time in the future if I end up in the right mood for the Warhammer fantasy world. However, it is far more likely that it will just sit in my Steam collection and collect dust, as I still have a lot of more interesting games in my back catalog, and on top of that I am much more interested in the Warhammer 40k setting than the fantasy one. Nioh 2, the complete edition, might be the actual top pick of the month for many. I am not into this sort of a game though, as I do not like to torture myself with Souls-like games. Many of those games do look interesting, but not interesting enough for me to drop money on games that I might end up abandoning out of frustration first time I get stuck on some random boss for a few days. Maybe I will play this one at some point since I got it from Humble Bundle, although I already installed Remnant 2 from Game Pass, as that one looks way more interesting to me at the moment. So I will try it out first. After all, Nioh 2 will wait patiently in my Steam library for the day when I feel like real life does not provide enough challenge and frustration anymore. Anyway, this game is very positive on Steam, and judging by the user reviews, it is a good one. And since I already mentioned Realms of Ruin being about as well received as a fart in the crowded elevator, Saints Row reboot stuck its landing even better than that. This one was way worse than a mere wet fart. This time the prankster stuffed his face with dodgy kebab and milkshakes all day, only to then gleefully stroll into a posh restaurant, pull his pants down and let loose the salvo from hell. Anyway, I do remember this game having more red flags before its release than a communist rally, and I also remember all the fun videos dunking on it once it did release, and was even less fun and more cringe than even the most skeptical people expected. Needless to say, I will not install this one unless I go mad or lose a bet. However, it is still nice to have this piece of gaming history in my Steam library. It came at no actual cost after all, as I got my money's worth out of this month's Choice membership thanks to the following two games that made it to my Steam wishlist in the past. Citizen Sleeper is a game that I almost bought recently, but decided to postpone my purchase because I did not have the time to play it at the time anyway. Now I have it alongside a bunch of other games, some of which I might actually play in the future. Either way, I might actually play this one sooner than I expected now that it already is in my Steam library, and I realized it is supposed to be a fairly short game. It does look quite interesting, and I like Citizen Sleeper's setting and art style quite a bit. What can I say? I am a sucker for sci-fi, especially when it is set on a space station or a spaceship, and even though I do not prefer cyberpunk over other sci-fi settings, I do not mind it at all either. Black Skylands is the second game in this bundle that I was interested in the most. I am not sure why, but I dig the art style of this game. Judging by the screenshots, the game world looks interesting, but I cannot really say much else about this game as I have not played it yet. Hopefully I can set aside enough free time to squeeze in a session or two this month. If I do and end up liking the game, I might make a video or two about it in the future. The alternative is that Black Skylands will join the long list of games that clog my back catalog of games I want to play, but do not have the time for. Either way, I am glad the game is in my library now. By the way, for whatever reason, I quite like games set in a world of floating pieces of landscape. The other ones set in a similar sort of a world that I quite enjoyed in the past were Driftland, The Magic Revival and Eador, Masters of the Broken World, and I also have my eye on the World Turtles game. I am quite sure I will end up buying that one in a Steam sale sometime later this year, as I also quite like the idea of a turtle floating through space with an entire inhabited world on its back. Soulstice looks interesting, but when I read the description on Steam and saw words fast-paced action, I knew I probably will not play this one. I am too slow for that sort of stuff. That is why I usually prefer turn-based games over stuff that washes over me in real time and leaves me behind before I even realize something's going on. On some days I am akin to a sloth in this regard, although other days I can keep up and enjoy entertainment that does not have to be paused while my brain farts around in my skull. To be honest, it is probably more of an ADHD problem than me being too slow. I just cannot properly focus some days. Anyway, if I am ever in the mood for playing Soulstice, I have that option now. Afterimage looks interesting, however I am not into the Metroidvania kind of games. Not that I do not like these sorts of games, but I usually prefer RPGs and strategy games. So it is more of a thing where I do not have enough free time to play everything and I allocate the time available to games I enjoy more. Afterimage does have a lot of positive reviews on Steam though, and I am sure many of you would get a lot of value out of it, as these sorts of games seem to be rather popular. And finally, Destroyer the U-Boat Hunter is something for fans of World War II naval combat. I am not one of those fans though, so this is another one that will just increase the number of games in my Steam collection. From the reviews I read on Steam, I got the impression that the gameplay is good, but the graphics leave a lot to be desired. The screenshots do look fine to me, but that is not necessarily indicative of the in-game experience, and I am not going to download the entire game just to check for myself, especially when it comes to a game I am not interested in playing. To conclude, this month's Humble Bundle choice is rather nice overall. Many of the games are not what I would normally choose to play, or at least not games I would spend my money on. However, there were also two games that I was quite interested in, and besides Citizen Sleeper and Black Skylands, I was originally interested in Realms of Ruin 2. But I decided it was not worth the money back when it came out. It was worth it for me as part of the bundle though. Also, I do not mind having the reboot of Saints Row in my library at this cheap a price. I am extremely unlikely to ever play that game, but I will take it for the lols. Nioh 2, Soulstice and Afterimage are something that I will probably never play, but am glad to have the option of playing if I ever end up in the mood and having the time to play them. Destroyer the U-Boat Hunter is pretty much in the same category, but even less likely to be ever played by me. And most important thing for me is that none of these games were duplicates of stuff I already bought in the past. But to be honest, Humble Bundle is really good at avoiding stuff I already own and providing at least 1 or 2 games from my Steam wishlist every month. Or rather, I have been quite lucky in that regard so far. I do need to start playing through my back catalog of games though. There are so many games I have in my library that I want to play, but have not had the time for yet. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you too have too many games thanks to Steam sales and game bundles and too little time to play them, let me know in the comments below. Also, please do hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.